everybody, and welcome back to yet another monthly reading wrap-up. It's the beginning of July. Like, what else were you expecting this video to be? Also, you clicked on it. Anyway, hi, I'm very happy to have you here and to talk to you about the 24 books that I read in June. Yes, I went a little crazy. I don't exactly know what happened. I just know that I was kind of in a trance and I read a bunch of books, so that happened. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too long about this because we have to get through these books. So grab yourself a drink, stay hydrated, people, and let's get into all of these books. As always, there will be no spoilers in this video, and we're going in chronological order. So, the first book that I want to talk to you guys about is Night Shift by Annie Cowan. This is a Wattpad romance. What else can I tell you about it? I don't exactly know. I remember now that I actually I looked through my Wattpad, through my Wattpad history, and I found it. I read this book when I was 13, and I completely forgot about it again, and then I read it again, and I thought it was alright. It was an alright book. So we have, of course, the popular basketball player at school, and then we have the reader girl who works at the library. She works the night shift, and he's very popular, and then she kind of starts to tutor him. There's a bunch of miscommunication, but at the same time, they're also really good at talking about the things that they do talk about. One thing I liked about this book, weirdly enough, were the spicy scenes, because there were some. What I liked, though, was that they were semi-realistic. For example, they kept, bumping their heads together and laughing, and, accidentally hitting the other person with their elbow. It was a fun time, and I liked that about the book. It was good. I had a good time, and this book kind of fits into the category of this was a fun book, not a good book. I'm not here to give out literary prizes, right? This was fun, and I had a blast. That's all that counts. Let's move on. The next book was The Charm Offensive. I finally read this. I've been recommended this book so many times, and I finally gave into it, and I finally understand what people are talking about because this is such a good book. It was funny, it was cute. It's about this guy who accidentally enters a dating show to fix his image, and he's supposed to date all these women. He's just very socially awkward. I really wanted to diagnose him with autism, but I couldn't because he's not actually a real person. We were one and the same. We were one person. Anyway, our main character is demisexual, and he's just a little shy around people. And then we have our other main character, Dev, and Dev works for the TV show. He is the producer, and he's supposed to take care of the other guy, Charlie. It's just adorable. It's cute. I had a very fun time. I had a blast reading this book. It was so fun. It was so cute. And I can only encourage you to read The Charm Offensive. After I read those two books, I went down a rabbit hole. Well, it wasn't an entire rabbit hole. Who am I trying to kid? It was 2 books. And I kind of dove into small town romance again. This is Alive and Wells and Seeing Red. First book, second book. These are fun. They're also on Kindle Unlimited if you want to check them out yourself. You don't have to pay because Amazon pays for you. That's how that works. This is small town cowboy romance on a horse ranch. Literally on a horse ranch. We are branding cows in this book. So, in Alive and Wells, we have our main character who comes from an abusive relationship. She runs away from her ex-husband, and she runs to this cattle ranch where she just appears, and she's just hi, I was told I could work here. So she then starts to work on this ranch, and we have this grumpy guy who owns the place, and he's you're not gonna last a day. And she proves him so wrong. This was fun. This was also extremely spicy. I was not expecting it from this cover. You just don't expect it, but it's there. Also, the guy in this one, he's one of the most possessive characters I've ever read about, so that was fun. I had a blast. And then Seeing Red is where I realized that I actually really like the pregnancy trope. I can't deny it anymore. I like the pregnancy trope in most cases. There are cases where if the pregnancy is not the main topic of the book, then I don't like it. It has to be what everything else evolves around. This is about Cassie, and Cassie's boyfriend cheated on her, I think, and she wants to get back at him. So what she does is grab the town rake, I would say, and go and have a one-night stand with him on her ex's car. That's where the book starts. It starts off pretty wild. What she then later realizes is that she got pregnant from that one-night stand on that car, And that's then like him figuring out that she's pregnant and him taking care of her realizing that maybe he's not as much of a rake as everybody says he is. Maybe there's more to the story. This was fun. It was good, it was cute, I had a good time. I can encourage you to read this book without feeling bad about it because I really, really enjoyed it. After that, I stuck with Kindle Unlimited Romance and I read Leather and Lark. This is the second book of Butcher and Blackbird. Now, I really loved Butcher and Blackbird, and Leather and Lark was good, but it wasn't as amazing as Butcher and Blackbird was, in my personal opinion, obviously. These are all my personal opinions. You probably have different opinions, and I would love to hear about your opinions, so tell me about them. But this is mine, so I thought this book was good, it just wasn't outstanding. So if you don't know what this entire series is about, it's about unaliving people in creative ways and falling in love even though you unalive people. I think that's the best way I can describe it. So we have the main character, our main character, he is a hitman and she's a serial unaliver of just like random dudes who've done bad things to children. She's a good unaliver. She does good even though she does bad things. So what her thing is that she then makes art projects out of the body parts. That's important to note because I don't know why, I just thought it was funny. He's in danger because her family thinks that he could be potentially dangerous. There's somebody like out for blood. So they decide to get married in secret and be like, this is my husband, this is my wife. You know, marriage of convenience in order to protect him, in order to protect her best friend. This is fun. Let's move on. The next book I read, though, was When in Rome. Now, if you want to read these books, they are small town romances again, okay? Please start with the first book. I made a mistake. I read the second book first because I think it was like 99 cents on Kindle and I was like, I need that. So I read the second book first, which is Practice Makes Perfect. I read that kind of like last year. Lucky for me, I read so many books that I usually like forget what's going on. So I did forget. And then I read this. This was fun. The first thing I want to tell you about these books is that they're like spice-free, closed door, like nothing in here that kind of makes you feel uncomfortable. This is a celebrity small town romance. In this book, our main character, she tries to run away from her stressful life. She's supposed to go on tour, like she's a singer. She's very, very popular. Everybody knows her. So then she just like gets in her car, drives away to Rome, which is a small town in the US, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. She arrives there, her car breaks down in front of his garden, like his fence, and then she breaks down. He's like, you know what? Let me help you. Like, get in. Like, go to sleep, we'll fix it in the morning. And then she just decides to like stay there a little while because she just needs a break before she goes on tour. He's a pie baker, like he owns a pie shop. How adorable is that? Anyway, this is kind of like a cute romance that you can enjoy. I like this. Was it cliche? Sure. Was it a little much at some point? Sure. Did I have a good time? Yes, I did. And you will probably have a good time too. This is adorable. We are sticking with these spice-free romances and moving on to a hockey romance. Even the fact that spice-free hockey romance exists is a miracle, but it does. This is Betroll or Breakaway. This is a third book in a series. She is a new mom and he is her best friend. Like they've been besties for years and she needs to get a very, very important heart surgery, but she's not sure if her health insurance can cover it. So what she does is she gets married to her best friend and moves in with him so that he can take care of her. For this book, I was very happy to read about autistic representation in a book, right? He is autistic. One thing that bothered me though is that he was talking about having Asperger's, which is just, you don't say that anymore. Like that is an old term that you don't use anymore because now it's called autism spectrum disorder. What he also said a lot was that he has autism rather than that he's autistic. It's the small things that just like bother me a little bit. It was just the language. The representation itself was great. It was just the language in which he portrayed the autism spectrum that just bothered me a little bit as an autistic person myself. It was still very fun and very good. I liked it. However, I just struggled a little bit with the language in this. The next book I read was Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. I was hoping I would enjoy this. I just didn't really enjoy it. So this was kind of like a flop for me. It wasn't necessarily a bad book, I just kind of didn't feel that chemistry. Essentially, you have our male main character, he texts a random number and it just happens to be our female main character, right? He texts her, they kind of get into this like texting habit, and it is very clear to us from the beginning that she is his best friend's little sister. They kind of live together, alright? You realize things. I don't know why I struggled so much with it. I think it was just the lack of chemistry between the two. I don't usually enjoy this whole wrong number thing. I don't like it. It's the same when they write each other letters and you don't know who the letter writer is. It just bothers me because one person always knows and the other just doesn't know. I also kind of thought that she was annoying. Don't know why I thought that. I just felt like she was very annoying. I also didn't like him very much. So in general, it was just not the book for me. However, if you think this sounds interesting, maybe it's the book for you. It's just not the book for me. So next up is a video that I did for these 3 books. I'm gonna link the video for you up there. So these are the Hunger Games, alright? We have the Hunger Games, we have Catching Fire, we have Mockingjay. I read all 3 in a video. For now, I'm just gonna say I read the Hunger Games. I really enjoyed the first book, which was fun. I liked the whole Hunger Games vibes. And then this happened, and I didn't enjoy it anymore. The main reason being that I had to turn on my brain. Same with this one, by the way. Also didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't my cup of tea because it was so, like, there was so much critique in, like, social situations in there, and I know that Suzanne Collins was trying to tell me something and was trying to tell me something that's wrong in the world. I just didn't get it because I don't get things if they're not written on the page exactly. I struggled with that, and that is just why I personally did not like The Hunger Games. After I read The Hunger Games, I was back into romance. I went straight back and I read Whiskey Business. This is a small town romance, again, about a girl who moves back to her hometown in Scotland where she meets this guy that kind of doesn't really like her, but he kind of owns this whiskey making thing. I don't know what it's called, but he makes whiskey, right? That's his job. So she's a struggling actress who needs to like lick her wounds back home. And so she goes back home to the house her grandpa left her together with this whiskey brewing place, right? So she then goes there and she's like, maybe I can help you. Maybe we can like team up together. He's kind of reluctant to accept her help because he doesn't understand that she didn't know that her grandpa was dying. But he's adorable. He is, I mean, adorable is the wrong word for a very grumpy, very large bear kind guy. But he's adorable. I love him. I want to cuddle him. That's it. Thank you for your attention. Anyway, this was a fun book. It was spicy. It was good. I liked it. I had a fun time. Next, I read an ebook because it came out that day, and that is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I have my edition coming in the mail sometime this week, but I just can't wait to film this video, so we're not waiting. We're just talking about Not in Love. This is probably one of my least favorite books by her, and I don't mean to say that in a bad way, I just didn't enjoy it. Probably because I don't do very well with this whole like friends with benefits trope. I thought that they could have at least talked a little more. There was so much miscommunication in there that I was at some point like just questioning them, because aren't they supposed to be scientists? Well, at least she's a scientist. He's not. He works in like business. The main plot of this book is that our main character is a chemist and she works at this firm which works with, I think, biogas stuff. And she has her own little project on biodegradable plastics or something. He works for a company that is trying to buy out this company that she works at. However, she doesn't really understand why, and she's just trying to get her own thing like patented so that she can do her research properly. And so she feels very betrayed by him, and he's just, you don't really know what his deal is the whole time. I kind of liked the plotline, but at the same time, I really didn't like the plotline. I was just very confused. Not my kind of book. Let's move on. Because after this, I read another book that I didn't really enjoy much. I read Filthy Rich Vampire. Yeah, I was looking for something that would just like scratch an itch inside my head. It kind of scratched the itch, but also like not really. We have this girl who is supposed to play her cello at a vampire banquet. and she's human. And our main guy, the vampire, right? He's like this vampire who's been asleep for years and years, and he's just like special and one of the best vampires out there, blah. So he's supposed to get married to some kind of witch because apparently that's how you keep the line working. I don't know. So they pretend to date. They pretend to be mated. She has to go to some weird vampire banquets in Paris, and he's just like, I have a house in Paris. We're just gonna go there. They pretend, and then suddenly she's not good enough for him and he sends her away. I hated this book. It wasn't good. I don't like it. I didn't read the rest of the series. I didn't even get the book as a paperback. I just didn't care. I just did not care. I do realize that I just spoiled the book for you, but I wouldn't recommend it, so no. After that disaster, things turned out to be a lot better because I read Late Bloomer, which was adorable. This is essentially another small town romance where our main character Opal, I think Opal is the blonde or the brunette, I don't know which one is Opal, but Opal wins the lottery, and as it turns out all her friends are like fake friends, so they all want money from her. So she decides to buy a struggling flower farm in the middle of nowhere to do her arts and crafts work at, because she's just like, you know what, that sounds amazing. So she does that. Turns out on this flower farm that wasn't actually supposed to be sold, there is this girl who works there, and she's like, this is my flower farm. So they're like, they're together and kind of like working through their issues. It's fun. I loved it. It's a very cute romance. There is a little bit of spice, not too much, not too little. It's just a good balance. I liked it. I loved the autism and neurodivergence representation in this book. It was just so good. I had so much fun reading it. This is how you do representation. This is how you write a queer relationship. This is how you write autism representation. It was so good. After that, I finally read a fantasy book, and I read When the Moon Hatched, which was a very good idea because I loved this book. I've heard that some people don't like it because it's very heavy on the world building. However, that was just what I needed and wanted in this situation, in this scenario. So we have our female main character who is kind of like an assassin for this assassin's guild, but she falls into a trap and gets locked up in a prison. She doesn't know what to do. She's about to be executed, and this man appears who is a king, and he has a dragon, and he's trying to help her in some ways. It's very fun. It's good. I am still struggling with this book a lot because it did not clear up all the questions that I have. There were probably some plot holes, like people have been complaining about it, but I didn't really mind while reading. I had a good time. I liked it. I especially liked him. He is just a good character. Anyway, that was When the Moon Hatched, and now I'm moving on. Because after that, I thought I was ready to read a thriller. I was not ready to read a thriller. I tried to read The Housemate by Frida McFadden. I failed to read The Housemate. I read 70 pages and then I read the last 2 chapters and then was done. I did not like this book. Not because the book is bad, but because I don't like thrillers. I think they're boring. I was able to guess how this book would end within the first few pages of reading it. And I guessed correctly, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing about me, but I did. It's about this woman who lives as a live-in housemaid for this family, and everything about this family is very strange. The woman is really weird, forgetful. The child is just horrible, and the man is just like the nicest man on earth who helps her. I just didn't like it. And we're moving on because I don't want to talk about the book in a bad way because it's probably really good. But I just don't like it because I don't like thrillers. So we're moving on. Because I was missing romance before, I got my romance now. I read Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. This was amazing. This is a single dad romance. This entire series by Lauren Asher is about single dads and nothing else. It's small town, billionaire, single dad. He saves animals in his backyard. What more could you want from a book man? He's adorable. The child in this book was also adorable. Let me tell you the plot before I gush on about him. So our female main character starts this book as a live-in nanny for this kid who's going blind. And she's just like playing with him, but then she makes a little mistake. She doesn't tell the dad something about the kid, and he fires her because the kid kind of gets hurt a little bit. So then the kid just like tells his dad like, you need to get her back. I love her. So they had this whole nanny relationship that I really, really enjoyed. I liked them together. He is like one of my favorites. I love him. I had a blast reading this. This was fun. This was cute. This was spicy in all the right ways. What I didn't like about it was that they could have just communicated a little better. I feel like that's always my problem with some books. I think we can move on and just leave it at the point that this book is very good, and I can only encourage you all to read this book because it's amazing. After that, I read a book, and I read The Crimson Moth. I was feeling fantasy, and I got fantasy. Was it amazing, groundbreaking? No, probably not. I do understand why people like it so much. I do understand the hype around it. I don't understand why people say it's their new favorite book. It was good. It was fun, it just wasn't anything outstanding. Now, we live in a kingdom where magic is forbidden. We have witches and magic is just not a thing. There's a lot of witch hunters out there who are just looking for witching scars, magical scars. Our main character, of course, she's a witch, right? She's a witch, but she's kind of like hiding. She doesn't want to get noticed. She's pretending to be this dumb, pretty girl in public. And our male main character, he's a witch hunter, and he's like unalived a lot of witches in his time. That's his job. He's so good at it. I enjoyed some parts of it. I didn't enjoy other parts of it. It was overall a very fun story. However, I struggled. It could have been because I just have not read a YA fantasy book in a long, long while. So do with that information whatever you want. And let's move on. Next up, I read Betting on You by Lynn Painter. I have mixed feelings about Lynn Painter books, as you've seen before with the Mr. Wrong Number thing. However, I think she should just continue writing young adult romances because somehow they're better. This is about a girl whose parents are in the middle of a divorce, and she meets a guy on the plane the first time she like travels between her parents' houses, and he's like, we have something in common, like parents are not together anymore. So they hate each other on this plane because he's a know-it-all, she's a know-it-all, and they don't have the best time. Now, we have a few time skips in this because they meet again and again throughout their life, and they get older, and then at some point they meet again at a job that they're both working at, and they kind of like decide that they might have a lot of things in common. They kind of become friends. They have this whole thing going where she is determined that boys and girls can be friends, and he's determined that that's just like not possible. So they kind of are friends-ish, and they were starting to become friends. However, he is obviously like developing a lot of feelings for her, and then they try and kind of fake date because she's trying to annoy her mother's new boyfriend. And it's just a cute, fun story that is just very heartwarming and like gives you a bubbly feeling inside, and it's just good. This is a good book. Next, I read All Roads Lead Here. The first thing I thought when I read this book was, okay, these characters are old. Because usually I am used to reading about characters around my age in their early to mid-20s. Maybe one of them's in their like early 30s. These characters are both in their mid to end 30s, or like he might even be in his early 40s. So this is another small town romance where she's trying to get away from something, and she's driving back into her old hometown where she used to live, and she rented this Airbnb, which happens to be his garage. However, he didn't rent it out, his son did. He's now just like there, and he's like, okay, you know what, you can stay here, it's fine. However, I don't want you here. And slowly he kind of warms up to her because he realizes that she might not actually be a bad person. It's an adorable romance. I really enjoyed this. We had a whole bunch of like, who hurt you and what happened to you. I just had a good time. Let me just say that I had a good time reading this book. I also really enjoyed this cover. I don't know. There is an alternate cover for that. I think that's the older cover. It's this one. It's not pretty. This is better. Get this cover if you can. And now, moving on to the last 3 books that we're gonna be talking about in like as one, or like we're starting. This is the Bergman Brothers series. Well, not this. These are the first 3 books of the Bergman Brothers series. The first one is Only When It's Us, second one is Always Only You, and the third one is Ever After Always. These are stories set in Los Angeles, California, where we, in the first book, are following a female soccer player who is kind of set up by her professor to this guy in class who kind of ignores her, and she's confused why he does this. Turns out he has like severe hearing loss and he can't hear her. She then kind of has to like warm up to him because they have to do a class project together, and they're like still being set up by this professor who then also happens to be his brother-in-law. It's a whole thing and it's fun. It's very enjoyable. It's a cute romance that I just really liked. The whole thing about this series is that there is so much representation of different disabilities in this series that I just adored that. I loved that. Every single character in this book has some kind of real life struggle that just feels so real and so honest to me, and I love that. I listen to the audiobooks because the first 5 audiobooks are free if you have Audible, and I really enjoy that. I'm not being paid by Audible, I just like that. Moving on to the second book, which is about Ren and Frankie. Ren is a hockey player. He's the only hockey player in the family. The rest of the family is kind of more into soccer because they're also half Swedish. Maybe I should say that about this. And then we have Frankie, who kind of works for the team as like a social media publicist person, and she walks on a cane. She has a little bit of like struggles with her bones and joints and stuff, so that's very cute. Their romance is also very adorable. I like it. It has more of a kind of forbidden romance character to it, but also this whole vibe of he has been pining for her for years. It's adorable, it's cute, it's sweet, and he's very awkward, which I like. He's like the awkward hockey player, which doesn't exist very often, but in this case it does. And for the last book of today, we have Ever After Always, which is the third book. This is the professor from the first book who set them up, and this is the sister in this whole Bergman brothers bunch. She is called Freya, and he's called Aiden, and this is their romance. It's cute. They're already married, but their marriage is really struggling, and Freya is sending him away to be alone. She needs time, and this is them going to like couples therapy and fixing their marriage. And I think that's so good. I like these kind of romances where they're trying to fix their marriage because it shows that you need to put work into a relationship for it to work. And at the same time, in this case, you have a character who has severe anxiety, and you can see how having anxiety can be a struggle for a relationship. It's just very good. The therapist in this book, I loved her. I wanted to have her as my own therapist. It was so much fun. So that is this book, and that's it. Honestly, I cannot believe that I just talked for 45 minutes about all those books, and I'm gonna have to cut that down so much because you don't want to listen to me for 45 minutes. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, remember to leave a like. Comment your favorite book of last month if you made it to this point. I would be really, really interested in knowing what you read, and I will see you all soon with a new video. Bye everybody, and have a lovely day. But how did I read this much? 24 books? That's kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't have many other hobbies. I think that's just it. Anyway, see you soon. Bye!